What's up, guys? This is Adam from Adam's Trail Notes, adamstrailnotes.com, and today we are going to be discussing the settings for night photography, in particular shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, because I was on Google and I literally searched night photography, and one of the most asked questions about that topic is what ISO is best. And I was thinking, well, why not just explain all of the settings or the main settings that you need? So this video is all going to be about what settings you need for night photography. Let's get into it. Now, the camera settings form the base foundation for the image. That means that if your image is either too dark or too bright, it can definitely make it more difficult when you are editing. So you want to get your settings right when you are shooting, so it's an easier process all the way through. Now, if you don't even know what the heck I'm talking about, I'm going to give you a brief rundown so we can get started. So when you switch your camera into manual mode, that allows you to control all of your settings, which include shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. Shutter speed controls the motion of your objects, aperture controls the depth of field of the image, and ISO controls the noise of the image, or also the brightness of it. And when you are out shooting night photography, it should be pretty dark. And by pretty dark, I mean really dark. And by really dark, I mean really, really dark. You're gonna need to have settings bright enough to expose for the image. So when you take a picture, it doesn't look just like a straight black image like it would to the naked eye. So what settings do we need to use? Before we get into the settings, I have to really quick talk about lenses. Now, I recommend a wide angle lens, especially for beginners, because it helps them see more. Because again, it is so dark out that when you're trying to compose your shot, you really can't because you're just seeing darkness. So if you have a wide angle lens, it's going to allow you to see more of the sky and more of the foreground if you can roughly estimate where those are when you point the lens. So first, have a wide angle lens. Between a 14 and 24 millimeter is best. And the focal length of the lens, or how zoomed in the lens is going to determine your shutter speed. Because if you have too long of a shutter speed, stars can start to trail, and we don't want that. We want nice pinpoint stars. So if you have a focal length of about 14 to 24 millimeters, your shutter speed is going to be around 15 to 20 seconds. Your aperture needs to be the widest open it can be, or the lowest possible number. Some lenses it's an f2.8, some lenses it's an f3.5. Whichever option your lens has, choose that one, but try and make it the lowest. Next up, the old age question. The question that's on the front page of Google when you search night photography. What ISO should you use? You should use an ISO of between 3200 and 8000. This will obviously depend on your camera because some cameras can handle different types of noise levels better. So I recommend just going to your backyard or your room and just take a few pictures with different ISO levels and see how your camera responds. And remember, when you bump the ISO up, the brightness of the image is going to go up as well. So keep that in mind. Depending on what location you're in. If you're in a really dark location, then you're gonna have to bump that up maybe a little higher than normally to get a decent exposure. And if you're in a light polluted area like a city, you're gonna have to have a lower ISO, like 400 maybe, so your image doesn't get totally blown out. And again, all of these settings are recommended. That does not mean that if you plug in a 15-second shutter speed with an aperture of f2.8 and ISO of 5000, you're gonna get a perfect image. It always depends on the location you're in, the conditions you're in, the camera you have, the lens you have. So these are base settings for you to start with, and of course, practice, 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 and experiment and see what settings are best for your camera and for the situation. And if you would like, click down below and download my free night photography checklist so you know how to be prepared when you are taking night photos. Plus, there's even a table graph that shows what settings you need for Milky Way and star trails photography, so you can try those shots out. I hope I answered all of your questions, and please leave a comment down below if this video was helpful or not, and if any other topics that you'd like me to make a video about. And how about you punch that like button just while you're here, subscribe, hit that little notification bell so you never miss when I post again, and have fun and keep photographing. I'll see you next time.